Hi guys, and welcome to this video where I'm going to try to present to you what I believe is the optimum equipment setup for all the tank classes. The usual setup you'll see on my tanks is going to be vertical stabilizers, optics, and gun rammer. First of all, I use vertical stabilizers and not enhanced gun laying drive for a number of reasons. Enhanced gun laying drive provides a 10% reduction in aim time. But what the game doesn't tell you is this will only work when your vehicle is stationary. So if your vehicle is on the move, it's not going to work. It's only going to work when your vehicle starts aiming, as in when your vehicle is stationary. Vertical stabs on the other side, they provide a 20% accuracy during movement through rotation. This means that vertical stabs will work all the time regardless if you're moving your tank or not. So you'll start with a 20% smaller reticle, so that means you'll have 20% less to aim. You should always use vertical stabs on any tank that can use it. Enhanced gun laying drive will only work on TDs and artillery. The second equipment I'm going to use the most will be gun rammer. That's pretty much self-explanatory. Everybody wants to have 10% less loading time, so don't really need to explain much about that. The third piece of equipment I use the most though is optics. Some people will tell me now, why do you use optics on a heavy tank? Why do you use optics on TDs and such? Okay, let me tell you why. Some people would probably try to use ventilation instead of optics on their tanks. Ventilation, even though it says it gives 5% to crew skills, your tank will benefit from an overall 2.3 performance increase, as in 2.3 to everything, to reload time, to camo, to driving skill, to everything. So, why have 2.3% to everything when I can have a whooping 10% to the V range? And because vehicles in World of Tanks, the view range is pretty similar to scouts or equal, optics combined with the proper view range skills will grant you the same view range as a light tank has, meaning you're gonna have pretty much the same spotting abilities as a light tank, which means you're gonna be able to spot your own targets. Your assist damage is probably gonna increase because of that. And you're barely gonna lose anything putting optics instead of vents. It's not much of a difference with or without vents. Now some people are gonna say, yeah, but World of Tanks is mainly at this point the mid-ice corridor maps. But you're not always gonna fight in those corridors. Most of the times you're gonna be fighting in open spaces where view range is gonna matter quite a lot. Because let's put it this way, you got an E5, mine for example. I got 400 base view range, I got optics, I got the view range skills. And I'm gonna be fighting versus an E5 that has vents instead of optics and maybe doesn't have view range skills and such. Let's just say we're both moving towards each other. I'm obviously gonna be able to spot him first and get the first shot into him. And if his view range is really that bad, he might not even see me. Now some people are gonna tell you, yeah, but the maximum spotting range is 445 meters. Cool, that's fine, but any view range over that, any value over that, will just negate the enemy's camo value and allow you to spot them faster, as in spot them from bigger distances. Now that we got that sorted out, I'm just gonna present to you what I use on different types of tanks, so you get an idea what the optimal equipment setup is. My E5 for example, every time you wanna put equipment on your tank, you should take a look at the gun stats, especially at the aim time. E5 has a very good aim time, 2 seconds. So vertical stabs, optics, and gun armor is gonna be perfect for this tank. On the other hand though, if I would have a tank with really bad aim time, like the IS-3A, which has a whooping 3.4 seconds aim time, this will be a case where I'll actually drop the optics, well, considering the IS-3A has a pretty small base view range. So I'm even more inclined to drop optics and put an enhanced gun laying drive. So we got vertical stabs and enhanced gun laying drive and gun rammer. Now for example, if we have an autoloader heavy tank like the T-57, we're gonna take a look again at the gun. 2.9 aim time, again very bad. But because autoloaders can't mount gun rammers, I'm still going to be able to keep my optics and put vertical stabs, optics, and enhanced gun laying drive. Now, if you're a person that is not bothered too much about the bad aim time, by all means, I guess you could put ventilation instead of enhanced gun laying drive. But I like my guns to aim as fast as possible. If you have an A100, for example, if we take a look at the gun, it's again 2.9 aim time. That's not really great. But since E100 is not a autoloader, I can put gun rammer on it. So I guess some people might be willing to drop optics in my case. I got vertical stabs, gun rammer, optics. Some people might be willing to drop optics and put enhanced gun laying drive or vents on the tanks. But I still prefer the optics because most of the times you'll see blind E100 drivers just driving and you can shoot at them with no problem and they won't even spot you. I don't like to be in those kind of situations. As I said, I always like to see what I'm shooting at or what's shooting at me. So again, even on E100, vertical stabs, gun rammer, and optics. Now some people might say, why don't you have a super heavy spoiliner on this kind of tank? Well, let's take a look what the super heavy spoiliner does. 50% to armor protection from ramming and explosions, and 50% to crew protection. Ramming and crew protection, that's nice, but the explosion thing, this is what the game doesn't tell you. This 50% reduction is only gonna work for non-penetrating high explosive shells and for splash damage. So if an arty, for example, shoots you on top of the turret and pens you for 2k damage, that doesn't mean you're only gonna receive 1k, no. It only works for non-penetrating high explosive shells and splash damage. Okay, let's move on to medium tanks. The usual medium tank setup is pretty much the same. Vertical stabs, optics, and gun rammer. Because my 140 has really nice aim time, 3.1. This is the optimal setup for this tank. But if we were to play, for example, a Batchat, which has really bad aim time, 2.7 seconds, and also because the Batchat is an autoloader and we can't mount gun rammer on it, I go with vertical stabs, enhanced gun laying drive, and optics. By all means, if you're happy with the aim time, you could drop enhanced gun laying drive and put vents instead. Now on the other hand, if you have an autoloader medium tank with good aim time, like the tier 10 Czechoslovakian tank, 2.1 aim time, optimal setup is gonna be vertical stabs, optics, and ventilation this time, because I don't need to reduce the aim time further, even though ventilation is gonna help with that. As I said, 2.3%. Enhanced gun laying drive isn't gonna make a big improvement, so I just go with ventilation. Ventilation usually stacks pretty well. Ventilation via food stacks really well with autoloaders. Okay, let's move on further to tank destroyers. As I said, tank destroyers and artillery can't mount in vertical stabs. So in this case, we go with enhanced gun laying drive, especially on the 268, which has a whopping 2.7 aim time. Enhanced gun laying drive, optics, and gun rammer. Now some of you are gonna say, why don't you have camo on it? Why don't you have binocs on a TD? Well, this is why. If you like to be really passive with your tanks, I like to mainly move a lot, but if you like to be really passive with your tanks, by all means, I guess you could put a camo on it. But I don't think it's worth it, especially on a tank like this. I don't think dropping an equipment slot for camo net or binocs is gonna benefit you too much. On the other hand, though, if we have a tank destroyer like the Hellcat, which has a very good 1.7 aim time, in this case we won't really need enhanced gun laying drive. It's not gonna benefit us too much. So in this case, of course, you could put a camo net, gun rammer, and I would surely go with optics. But if you prefer binoculars, by all means do it. Binos are usually good when you got fresh crews, when you got like really bad crews and you didn't get the view range skills yet, or the base view range is kind of low. So let's take another example. If you have a TD like the Waffenträger E100, the equipment is kind of limited on this. So first of all, it's an autoloader, so you can't mount gun rammer. I went with optics, camo net, and binos. First of all, enhanced gun laying drive isn't really gonna help you with anything because this tank has 1.5 aim time, which is excellent. So putting enhanced gun laying drive isn't gonna do you any good. Second of all, I got camo on it. I think it's pretty much worthless on a TD like this because the camo value is really bad. But I don't really have anything else to choose from. I guess toolbox could be a good choice for a VT to repair faster, and definitely I don't really recommend super heavy spall liner. Yes, it helps you with ramming and crew injuries, but bear in mind, as I said, it only helps you from non-penetrating high explosive shells or from splash damage. And people always shoot high explosive at the turret of this thing because it doesn't have any armor, 20 armor. So it's always gonna penetrate. So spall liner isn't gonna do you any good on this tank. So as you can see, I got optics, camo net, and binos. You could probably drop camo net for toolbox, and it would probably be a better trade. Okay, let's move further to light tanks. Now for light tanks, it kind of depends on what you want to do. I generally like to do damage with my light tanks and two spot if it's possible. So I go with vertical stabs again, optics, and gun rammer. If you like to use your light tank just for spotting purposes, or let's say you're doing the personal missions and you just want to spot, then I guess you could go with camo net, binocs, and optics if you really just want to be doing spotting. But as I said, I choose to be a bit more versatile with my light tanks and try to do damage too, and when possible I try to spot. If you got a lower tier scout, for example like the T-37, which can't mount a gun rammer, I'd go for vertical stabs, optics, and ventilation because the aim time of this thing is already really good. So vertical stabs for accuracy on the move, optics for view range, and vents to improve the overall capabilities of the tank. Same thing goes for T-49. Even though the T-49 has a really bad aim time of 3.6 seconds, I wouldn't really drop gun rammer or optics, for example, just to put enhanced gun laying drive. Whenever you want to aim for a target, you're probably like going to choose a good position when you're not spotted, so you have plenty of time to aim. Now we're at the last class, the artillery. For artillery, it's pretty straightforward. It has gun laying drive, gun rammer, and it's usually a good idea to get camo net on your artillery. Especially on the 261, for example, it has good camo value, so a camo net is gonna work just fine. Now, for example, if you got an artillery that's not open topped, like the 261, a Conqueror GC, for example, you probably want to drop camo net and you're gonna put ventilation. You can't see it on the 261 because it doesn't have the option. So on a Conqueror, on something with that's not open topped, the best thing would be enhanced gun laying drive, gun armor, and ventilation. One other piece of equipment you might want to take a look at is enhanced torsion bars. This is gonna come in handy when, for example, you have a stock tank and you want to put the next gun on it, but you can't because the load limit, you're already exceeding the load limit. So by putting this, you're gonna be able to get the top gun on your tank, just an example. So enhanced torsion bars definitely deserves to be mentioned, especially if you're grinding stock tanks. Some other people, for example, use toolbox on tanks with fresh crew. I never really do this because I don't think it's worth. But if you got a fresh crew and you got problems repairing your tank, then yeah, I guess you could consider toolbox too. Anything else from equipment wise, I don't think it's worth it. Some people use wet ammo racks on tanks that have problems with ammo rack. I don't find that to be good at all. I don't think it's worth it. As I said, the optimal setup is vertical stabs, optics, and gun rammer. And I don't feel that dropping any of these for a wet ammo rack is gonna help, or for any of the other pieces of equipment that I haven't mentioned. I think we got over everything I wanted in this video. As I said, I mostly mentioned the equipment I find being the most useful. Thank you everybody for watching. I hope this video helps you. Please like and subscribe to help grow the channel, and tell me what you think about the video in the comments below. Goodbye.